I am so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please forgive me.
A black maid tied the baby using an old shawl. The billionaire saw it and called the method savage. He fired her instantly for breaking his rigid rules. And then, what happened was unpredictable. The house fell apart. The great anger in Ethan Thorne had been building for 8 long months. His whole life had shattered when his wife, Sarah, died from problems after giving birth to their child. He had lost his true love and the mother of his baby. Now he was left with Maya, a baby who seemed to push him away and cry at his touch. This pain made him feel like a complete failure as a father and a husband. Ethan decided to control everything he could. Control was his only way to feel safe now. He was the CEO of a massive software company in San Francisco. He was a man who fixed big, hard problems with huge amounts of money and very strict rules. Sarah had been just like him. When she was expecting Maya, she wrote a thick book of rules for raising their child. It covered every tiny detail: feeding, sleeping, and even the exact temperature and humidity in the room. Ethan followed it like a powerful, holy book. He thought this book was the only part of Sarah he had left to hold on to. He believed the book was perfect because Sarah was perfect, and her way was the only right way. But the rules did not work. Maya cried nearly all the time. She did not connect with the world. The deep silence in the super clean mansion was broken only by her sad, constant sound. This crying made Ethan feel terrible, and that feeling turned into fierce anger toward anyone who failed to fix the problem. He started to believe the baby was faulty, not the rulebook. He often locked himself in his office to avoid the sound of her crying, pouring his energy into his work problems. Ethan's work life was also a major mess. A big lawsuit had hit his company. People said his company was not fair to workers from different backgrounds. The news called it culture problems and Thorne's blind spots. Investors and important business partners were starting to worry about his leadership. They thought he did not understand the modern world. He felt like his life was breaking on 2 sides, his cold home and his angry job. He needed the home part to be perfect, so he could focus only on saving his company. He started to fear that he was truly losing his mind from the double stress. In the last 8 months, 7 nannies had failed. Ethan kept detailed notes on their failures, blaming their lack of discipline or their soft backgrounds. The first one left after 2 weeks, saying the baby was too sad, and the house was too cold for a child. The second one tried to let Maya cry alone in the crib, a harsh method Ethan allowed at first, but the screams were so awful that Ethan had to fire her himself. He couldn't stand the sound because it made him feel guilty about Sarah's death. The third nanny tried to sing sweet songs and play music, but Ethan told her that Sarah's book said nothing about singing. The rule only allowed for approved white noise sounds. He strictly enforced the rule. The fourth nanny tried to bring her own comfortable blankets and brightly colored toys, but Ethan said only the approved, clean, learning toys could be used. He thought the other things were dirty and non-educational. The fifth nanny tried to give the baby food based on when Maya seemed hungry, not the clock, but Ethan called it lazy work and ended her contract right away. He said the schedule was the law of the house. The sixth nanny tried to spend time just sitting and rocking Maya without doing any of the official activities, but Ethan fired her for unproductive time. The last 2 quit because the house felt more like a rich, empty office than a home. They said the lack of warmth was unhealthy. Ethan truly believed that the problem was not his cold rules, but the people who followed them. He believed the problem was the baby herself. He just needed one nanny who would follow the rules perfectly and finally fix his daughter. 3 months before, Sonia Reyes was in Chicago trying to hold her family together. Her life was nothing like the wealthy, easy world of Ethan Thorne. She lived in a small, just crowded apartment in a noisy neighborhood. Sonia worked 2 long shifts at a cafe downtown. She was always on her feet, smiling at customers, but her mind was always running numbers. She saw the number on the paper for her grandmother's cancer treatment, $15,000. She closed her eyes. It was a giant wall she could not climb alone. She often thought about taking out more loans, but they already had too much debt from her mother's illness. Her younger brother, Mateo, was brilliant. He was 6 months from finishing his engineering degree at a top university. He called her that night. "I can leave school, Sonia," Mateo said softly on the phone. "I can get a job. We can find a way to pay for Abuela. I can't let you do this by yourself. Absolutely not, Sonia cut him off. Her voice was strong, even though she felt weak inside. We have sacrificed too much for you to quit now. You will finish your school. That is our family's best chance. I will find the money. That is final. She felt the heavy weight of being responsible for 2 generations. She knew if Mateo finished school, their whole family would be saved from poverty forever. Sonia sat next to her grandmother, Abuela Elena, who was resting in bed. Abuela Elena was weak from her sickness. You must take this San Francisco job, little one, Abuela Elena told her, her voice soft like old cloth. Do not worry about me. I have lived a long life, but Mateo has his whole life ahead. Go get that money. Abuela Elena held Sonia's hand. Remember the strength of the women who came before you. We are tough. This shawl, she pointed to the drawer, it is a rebozo. It carries the love of all of us. You take it with you. Abuela explained that the rebozo was a symbol of their heritage, a piece of comfort and resilience. The shawl, a colorful woven rebozo, was very important. It was a beautiful old piece of cloth that had carried babies in her family for many generations. Her mother had told her that the shawl was a piece of their history. It meant strength and connection, a link across time. Sonia folded it carefully. It was a piece of her culture she would not sell, even for all the money they needed. It was the last link to the warmth of her past and her mother's memory. The bus station smelled like old fuel and sorrow. Sonia hugged her grandmother tightly. I will call every night, she promised. She knew that the money would save her family, but leaving them felt like tearing a piece of her own heart out. She was going to work for a man who could buy anything, but she was bringing the only thing he could not buy, true care and ancient wisdom. She watched the gray Chicago buildings shrink in the distance. She felt the heavy weight of her family's future resting on her shoulders. She promised herself she would not cry until she had finished the job, paid the bills, and brought her family relief. Sonia arrived at the Thorne mansion 2 days later. The house was cold and stunning. It was all straight lines, sharp corners, and glass. It did not feel like a home. It felt like a rich, unfeeling lab. The marble floors made every footstep sound loud and important, breaking the deep, unsettling silence. There were no family pictures, only expensive, confusing abstract art that seemed to stare at her. Mrs. Chin, the manager, met her. Mrs. Chin's eyes were sharp and judging. The last 7 failed, Mrs. Chin said as she showed Sonia around. Mr. Thorne expects perfection. They all said the baby had no connection. She wouldn't bond with anyone. We've tried everything Western medicine suggests. Sonia felt her confidence drop a little, but she held on to the thought of the $4,000 a month. That money was hope. Ethan Thorne's office was like a control room overlooking the city. When he turned, Sonia felt the coldness from him. His presence was huge and heavy. He gave her the rulebook, which was bound in black leather. My late wife's rules are not to be changed, he said, his voice flat and hard. He explained that all the rules were based on the best university studies. They are based on science, not feelings or guesses. You must follow them exactly. I want no improvisation. Do not use any personal methods. He watched her hands closely as he spoke. Sonia went to the nursery. It was a museum room for a baby. It had monitors, special light timers, and expensive toys arranged perfectly. The crib was state-of-the-art and looked more like a machine than a bed. It was missing life, warmth, and mess. And there was Maya. The baby was pale and crying a low, constant cry. It was not a cry for food. It was a deep, lonely sound. It was the sound of a baby who had learned that the world was an empty place that offered no lasting comfort. Her tiny fists were clenched tight. Sonia slowly picked up the baby. Maya cried harder, pushing away with her tiny arms. This was the problem of a child who did not trust any person to stay and provide real comfort. She had been left alone too often. Mrs. Chin stood by the door. Since we lost Mrs. Thorne, the baby cannot be calmed, she said quietly. He gives her everything money can buy, but she needs something else that money cannot touch. She needs a mother's touch. She cries for hours every night. It is terrible, and the doctors are getting worried about her growth. Sonia held the small, shaking body. She looked at the sterile, perfect room. She felt a huge wave of sadness for this child. She knew that the strict rules were the reason Maya was so sad. The rules kept love and natural movement far away. Sonia made a decision right there. She would try the rules first, but only for a short time. If they failed, she would follow the old wisdom of her heart. The well-being of the child was more important than any rich man's book of rules. She had to save Maya from the coldness of her own home. The failure of protocols. Sonia started her job. She forced herself to follow the exact schedule. She read Sarah's notes, which were filled with complicated charts, graphs, and tiny writing. She felt like a medical assistant, not a caregiver. She timed every bottle feed to the minute, even when Maya was not interested. One rule stated, during designated quiet time, only silent. Approved rattles may be used. Vocal soothing is limited to 15 seconds per minute. This meant Sonia could barely talk to the lonely child. She was forced to treat the baby like a machine that needed maintenance, not a person who needed love. For 3 long days, 72 hours, Sonia did everything exactly as the book said. She felt like a robot. She used the silent rattle. She timed her short 15-second songs. She followed the timed rocking motions, using a special rocker that tracked the movement. Every step felt wrong, cold, and fake. The only time she broke the rule was to let the crying baby rest her head on her shoulder for a few extra seconds. And for 72 hours, Maya cried. The crying got worse. It was the sound of a child giving up hope, a long, weary wail that echoed off the marble. Sonia felt her own spirit wearing down. She had worked with many upset children, but she had never met a child who resisted comfort this strongly. Maya had learned that all comfort was fake and would soon disappear. On the 3rd night, Sonia had only slept for 2 hours total. Her nerves were raw. She was walking the long hall, holding the screaming baby. Her arms ached and her back was stiff. She felt like a total failure, even though she was following the rules perfectly. She watched the clock, waiting for her shift to end, only to start again. She video called Mateo late that night, tears in her eyes. "She just won't stop," Sonia whispered. "I feel like I am hurting her by following these rules. They are cold and empty. They force me to keep my distance. I can't do this anymore, Mateo." "Sonia," Mateo said, "you are following someone else's fear, not your own wisdom. A child needs to feel the beat of your life, not just the seconds on a clock. You know what to do." Mateo's words hit her hard. He was right. The rules were born from a mother's fear of losing control, and now that cold fear was hurting the baby. The rules were designed to keep the baby at a distance. The next morning, Dr. Morrison came back. "Weight is still down," he told Ethan and Sonia. "She is barely sleeping. Mr. Thorne, your rules are not helping. This is about deep emotional connection. This child needs to feel love that is always there. She needs more than just timing and charts." He used the term deep sadness from lack of love, explaining that the constant lack of physical warm contact was a type of harm. Ethan was angry and defeated. He left the room without a word. He was starting to believe the rules might be wrong. Sonia looked at Maya. The baby was sobbing, face red. Sonia realized the rulebook told her to put the baby down when she was not feeding or doing an activity. The rule was, keep your distance. But the baby needed the opposite. Sonia made her final choice. She knew she would be fired, but she had to save the baby first. She could not stand to watch the child suffer anymore, even if it meant risking her job. The healing rhythms. Sonia waited until Ethan was far away in his office, busy with angry phone calls about the company lawsuit. She went to her room and took out the rebozo. The vibrant fabric felt soft and strong in her hands, full of the warmth of sun and family. She closed her eyes and heard her mother's voice, close to the heart, safe from the world. "You are sharing your life with her. This is the way of our grandmothers." She felt a wave of calm and confidence wash over her. She tied Maya securely to her chest. It was a simple, practiced motion. The baby's weight settled perfectly against Sonia's center. This balance felt right and ancient. A small miracle happened. Maya stopped crying. The small body pressed against Sonia's heartbeat and gave a deep, shaking sigh. It was a release of 8 months of tension and sadness, like a heavy weight being lifted from her chest. "There we go, sweet baby," Sonia whispered. "You are safe now. You are loved, and you belong right here, with me." Maya became a new child right away. Her eyes became bright and curious instead of sad and tired. She reached out her tiny hand to touch the colorful fabric. She started making happy cooing sounds, communicating joy for the first time. Sonia began to move. She could now do everything while holding Maya. She was no longer glued to the rocking chair. She cooked real, healthy food that made the kitchen smell warm and inviting, replacing the sterile smell of disinfectant. She washed dishes, she tidied the house. She even read her own books while Maya slept soundly, rocked gently by Sonia's normal, daily movements. The rhythmic sway was the key to calming the baby's nerves and regulating her breathing. Maya's feeding improved greatly. She would eagerly drink her bottle while secure in the wrap, finally making a solid connection. Her naps were long and peaceful. She was finally thriving. She was connecting to the world through Sonia's body. Mrs. Chin noticed the change right away. She would often find Sonia cooking with Maya, sleeping peacefully on her back. Mrs. Chin's stern face would soften into wonder. She would stop asking for reports and instead just watch quietly. She knew this was real healing. She noticed the slight extra bulk under Sonia's clothes, but chose not to mention it. "How are you doing this, Miss Reyes?" Mrs. Chin asked one afternoon, her voice hushed. "The baby has not cried in 2 days. She is smiling at me. She is a different child." "She needed to feel secure," Sonia replied, keeping the rebozo hidden under her loose clothes. "She needed to be held like a piece of the person caring for her. She needed to know she was part of life's rhythm, not just a schedule." The secret was getting harder to keep. Ethan noticed the changes in Maya through the security camera. He saw the baby smiling and playing with an energy she never had before. But he could not see the simple cloth that was making it all happen. He just saw results that defied his expensive rules, and that only made him more suspicious. The warmth of the kitchen now felt like a mystery he had to solve. The trap of control success was dangerous because Ethan could not understand it, and he hated what he could not control. He was used to knowing the exact equation for every outcome. "Explain to me exactly what you are doing differently," Ethan demanded during one of their meetings. He was very angry. "I watch the cameras. You follow the schedule. Yet my daughter is well. Why? What is the trick you are using?" "I follow your rules, Mr. Thorne," Sonia insisted. She knew she was working on borrowed time. "Then why did 7 trained people fail, but you, a girl from a simple background, succeed?" The insult in his voice was clear. He thought her success was luck or trickery, not skill. "Perhaps your methods are dirty or unsafe. I demand to know." He felt his authority slipping away. Ethan was dealing with the collapse of his company. The lawsuit was now threatening his job as leader. He saw Sonia's success as another attack on his rules. He felt that if he couldn't control his own nanny, he couldn't control his company. His world was falling apart, and he needed someone to blame. He tried to hold Maya the way Sonia did, swaying gently. But Maya would cry for him. When Sonia took her, the baby calmed instantly. This felt like a deep, personal betrayal by his own daughter. Ethan's worry grew into deep paranoia. He reviewed the camera footage over and over, trying to catch a moment of deception. He questioned Mrs. Chin constantly, demanding to know what Sonia ate, who she talked to, and where she went on her breaks. He hired a private investigator to check Sonia's past, looking for any reason to fire her. He was spending more time watching Sonia than running his billion-dollar company, neglecting critical board meetings. Mrs. Chin warned Sonia again. "He does not handle mystery well. He needs to control everything. Your success reminds him of his own failures as a father. You are winning, and he thinks you are cheating. He believes success must look like him." The small, mean comments became more frequent. Ethan would talk about how her natural way was not as good as proper documented training. He started treating Sonia like a criminal he was trying to catch. He started checking the garbage cans and laundry baskets for clues. He felt like he was losing his mind, always searching for the hidden fault. "I want detailed reports," he announced one morning. He gave her a tablet loaded with tracking apps. "Every moment, every interaction. Document everything. I want timestamps for every time you touch her. I want to know why she is thriving without my rules. I will be watching your every move." Sonia felt sick. The electronic tracker felt like a rope tightening around her secret. She looked at the happy baby on her chest and knew she had to protect her. She decided she would keep the secret until the very last possible minute, hoping the baby's obvious happiness would be enough to protect her job and her family. The big meeting about his company's lawsuit had lasted 6 long hours. Ethan came home, furious and tired. His job was a disaster. He needed control. He needed his home to be perfect again. He heard humming from the kitchen. It was a warm, melodic sound. A sound of peace he had not known since Sarah was alive. For a second, he felt calm. But as he walked into the kitchen, his control shattered. What the hell is this? Sonia stood at the counter, making a simple, warm soup, and tied to her back, nested in the bright, colorful fabric that flowed like a waterfall, was his daughter, Maya. Maya was playing with a piece of fabric, smiling and utterly content. "This is old-fashioned," Ethan roared. He stared at the rebozo. "You are treating my daughter like a piece of luggage. This is not how modern, proper people care for children." "Mr. Thorne, please let me explain," Sonia began, her voice steady. "This is not luggage. This is how babies are carried safely across the world. It provides the security she needs. This is a connection. She feels your heartbeat through me." "Explain what? That you have been experimenting on my child with some backwards tribal nonsense?" He stepped closer, his hands shaking. "This is a foreign trick. This is not proper American child care." He pointed to the fabric. "That is probably dirty, unwashed cloth. You are risking her health." Sonia felt the words hit her like a physical blow. He was calling her culture dirty and shameful. "Sir, this is a traditional rebozo. It has been used safely for thousands of years. It is based on love and it works. Your rules were failing her. I was saving her life." "I don't care about your community or your love," Ethan shouted. "This is my house. My wife consulted the best doctors. She created rules based on science, not stories from another country." "But look at Maya," Sonia pleaded, gently turning so he could see the baby's calm face. "She is healthy. She is happy. That is the only science that matters. Her crying stopped the day I put this on." "She is being treated like a savage's burden," Ethan spat out, choosing the cruelest words he could find. "I trusted you with her safety. You will not disrespect my home with your methods. You betrayed my trust. Pack your things," he ordered. "You're done here. Get out of my house within the hour. I am calling the agency to report you for putting my child in danger. I don't care about your sob story." Ethan reached for Maya, roughly trying to untangle her from the wrap. The baby's cries escalated into heartbroken screams. She clung to Sonia. When he finally separated them and held Maya, the baby screamed with pure terror, her body going stiff as she pushed away from him, reaching back for Sonia. Mrs. Chin appeared, her face pale. She saw the baby's true distress and the man's cruel blindness. She looked at Ethan with deep disappointment. Knowing he had made the worst mistake of his life, she started packing her own bag upstairs. "I will gather my things," Sonia said quietly. She walked past Ethan, her head held high, even as Maya's terrible, desperate screams followed her up the stairs and echoed through the cold, empty spaces of the mansion. She knew she was losing the money, but she kept her dignity and the truth. The 4 days of hell. The first night without Sonia was a terrible, deep pain for everyone. Maya screamed with the raw sadness of a child who had felt safe only to have it ripped away. The sound was not just crying, it was a loud protest against abandonment. Ethan tried everything in the book, the silent rattle, the timed rocking, the approved lullabies, but nothing worked. The baby refused to eat and cried with such force that her voice was getting weak and ragged. She cried until she fell asleep from exhaustion, only to wake up an hour later and start again. By morning, Ethan's clothes were stained with spit up, and his eyes were red from no sleep. He felt like he was running a marathon on pure guilt. Mrs. Chin found him slumped in a chair, defeated. "She won't eat," he whispered hoarsely. "What did that woman do to my daughter? She broke her." "She loved her, Mr. Thorne," Mrs. Chin replied with a cold, firm voice. "And you broke that love. You chose your deep worry and bad judgment over your daughter's life. You must face that truth. I am giving notice. I cannot work in a house where cruelty is mistaken for rule following." The second day was even worse. Maya's cries were now weaker, less angry, and more hopeless. The sound seemed to highlight every inch of cold perfection in the mansion. Ethan called in sick to work for the first time in 5 years. He couldn't focus anyway. The problems at his company were getting worse. The lawsuit was making headlines. His stock prices were falling. He was losing control of his world. and he knew he deserved it. "This is your fault," Mrs. Chin snapped on the third day, finally letting her years of frustration out. "You are obsessed with a book written by a scared woman who only wanted control. You fired the one person who could help this child because of your ignorant fear. Look at her. She was happy, healthy, thriving. You tell me which way is better." Mrs. Chin packed her final box. Dr. Morrison's emergency visit on day 4 confirmed Ethan's deepest fears. Maya had lost a dangerous amount of weight. She was completely listless and exhausted. The doctor looked at the tiny baby grimly. "I have seen children fail to grow," he said, "but never this fast. You must change her life right now. We are talking about putting her in the hospital. She needs that connection back immediately. You must find Miss Reyes." The doctor handed him a prescription for urgent hospitalization. That night, alone in his office, while Maya's terrible cries still sounded from upstairs, Ethan finally did what he had to do. He went online. He typed traditional baby-carrying science into his computer. He expected to find proof of his prejudice, stories about germs and bad posture. Instead, he found studies from top universities. He found research from top child doctors. The articles all use the same terms: innate security, close contact, and safe bonding. They all concluded that constant physical contact makes the baby feel safe, calms the baby's nervous system, and helps the brain grow well. The old-fashioned method he had scorned was backed by more science than his wife's expensive book of rules. One journal article read, "Traditional carrying has been successfully done for thousands of years. It is especially helpful for babies who have felt sad or lost their main caregiver. The rhythmic motion mimics the womb, offering constant comfort." Ethan stared at his screen. His entire view of the world crumbled. He had destroyed his daughter's happiness because of his own deep worry and lack of knowledge. He grabbed the private investigator's report. It confirmed Sonia was honest and beloved. It listed her family's money problems and her devotion to her sick grandmother. Ethan felt a crushing wave of shame. He had punished a good person who was trying to save her family and his child. He tracked down Sonia at a budget motel near the airport. He called her room, his voice shaking. "Sonia, this is Ethan. I need to apologize. I was wrong about everything. I was cruel and terrible. Please, my daughter needs you. She won't stop crying. The doctors are talking about the hospital. I need you to save her. I will pay any price." Rebuilding and recognition. "I have conditions," Sonia said when she returned the next morning. Ethan stood in the foyer, looking completely defeated, pale and broken. Mrs. Chin had paused her final exit, watching closely. "Anything," he said immediately. "Whatever you need, please. Tell me." "First," Sonia said, her voice strong and clear, "you will never again use words like old-fashioned, dirty, or trick when speaking of my family's traditions. What I practice comes from thousands of years of successful care, and you will give it full respect and honor." Ethan bowed his head. "I promise. I am very sorry. I will never speak that way again." "Second," she continued, "I want a full, honest apology, not just to me, but to my grandmother and my brother, whom you insulted with your harsh words. I want you to tell them you were wrong and that their wisdom is real. I will call them today and repeat those words as often as you wish. I will beg for their forgiveness. I understand the weight of my insult." "And third," Sonia finished, her gaze holding his, "if I am to heal your daughter, you are going to learn why my methods work. No more blindly following rules. You will try to understand the science of touch and connection. I will teach you, and you will listen and accept. You must become a father, not just a schedule keeper. You must use the rebozo with me." Ethan agreed to it all. What followed was a complete education that changed Ethan's whole life. Sonia taught him about the science behind the rebozo, not just the tradition. She taught him how rhythmic movement calms the baby's nerves. She taught him that love is a constant presence, not a timed activity. She even taught him the proper way to tie the rebozo, so it was safe and secure. Ethan had great trouble with the knots at first, but he kept practicing late at night, often tying and untying the cloth for an hour until his fingers were sore. This proved his total commitment to changing his rigid thinking. Ethan, the smart CEO, focused his brain on learning this new wisdom. He read the research papers Sonia gave him. He talked to child doctors about bonding. He slowly understood how his sadness and need for control had stopped his daughter from healing. He realized his love was buried under his rules. Dr. Morrison's next visit was a happy event. Maya, once again secure in Sonia's care, had recovered all her lost weight and was thriving. "I have never seen such a fast change," the doctor marveled. "Miss Reyes, the medical community needs to hear about this. Would you speak at our pediatric conference about traditional care and attachment? You are a true expert, and your methods are proven." Ethan's change went to his company, too. The lawsuit had forced him to look at his work culture with the same harsh honesty he used on himself. He brought Sonia in as a consultant to his team. "You think good work looks like you," Sonia explained in a meeting with his leaders. "When someone succeeds differently than you expect, you doubt their methods instead of questioning your own ideas. My method was successful because it was rooted in connection, not control, which is what your company is missing. You need to value human wisdom, not just data." The changes were huge. Thorne Innovations started hiring people from many different backgrounds. The company became more innovative, and its reputation began to heal. "You have saved more than my daughter," Ethan told Sonia one evening. "You have saved my company and my whole view of the world. I owe you everything." He even apologized to Mrs. Chin, begging her to stay. She agreed, seeing the true change in him. Ethan called Abuela Elena and Mateo. His apology was long and painful, but honest. He told them he had acted like a fool. He arranged for them to visit San Francisco for Thanksgiving. He paid for their first-class flights and a holiday meal that honored both American and Latino traditions. He included a special moment to thank Abuela Elena for the wisdom she passed down, giving her the highest place at the table. Watching Abuela Elena, who was now getting good results from the treatments Ethan had quietly paid for, hold Maya, Ethan felt his heart fully open. The baby cooed and reached for the elderly woman's face with complete trust. Abuela Elena cried tears of pure joy, seeing her great-granddaughter thrive. Mateo, who was a few months from graduating, had already accepted a job at Thorne Innovations. "You're not hiring me because I'm Sonia's brother," Mateo had insisted. "I'm hiring you because you're brilliant," Ethan replied. The mansion finally sounded like a home, filled with laughter, the warm smells of cooking, and the gentle presence of a baby who knew she was loved. Ethan even started learning simple Spanish phrases to speak to Abuela Elena. The cold marble floors seemed a little warmer now, with colorful rugs and comfortable furniture replacing the cold abstract art. The proposal came on a quiet Sunday evening. Ethan found Sonia reading to Maya. He realized the perfect moment was already happening. "Marry me," he said simply, dropping to one knee. The ring he offered was beautiful, but the second ring was what made Sonia pause. It was a band crafted from gold that used patterns from her family's traditional jewelry. It was made to honor her heritage. "I want to spend my life learning from you," Ethan continued, his voice thick with strong feeling. "I want Maya to grow up knowing both her cultures, speaking both her languages, and understanding that love always requires respect. I want our children to know they are loved by both our families, equally." Their wedding 6 months later was a true celebration of two worlds coming together. Traditional music played with a string band. Sonia wore her mother's rebozo as a beautiful sash. They exchanged vows that spoke about respect and listening. 2 years later, when their son, Ethan Jr., was born, he entered a world ready to celebrate his dual heritage. Maya, now a confident 3-year-old, loved teaching her baby brother about the shawl that had saved their family. "This is how we carry babies in our family," she explained seriously to her brother. "Mama Sonia's grandmama taught her mama, and she taught Mama Sonia. And now she's teaching us." The next years brought deep success. The Thorne Reyes Family Foundation, set up to help students from backgrounds like Sonia's go to college, changed dozens of lives. But the best success was measured in the sound of children's laughter, echoing through a house that had learned the difference between wealth and true happiness. Ethan learned that true strength was not about control, it was about listening. He listened to Sonia. He listened to Abuela Elena's gentle advice. He listened to the needs of his children. He even listened more carefully to the people who worked for him, the ones he used to ignore. He completely changed the work environment at his company to focus on trust and different viewpoints, not just strict rules. He was still a powerful CEO, but he was a different man. He spoke often at business schools. He told his story of prejudice and change. He became famous for changing his mind and his company. I thought my money and my power meant I knew best, he would tell the students. I had a brilliant wife's research and the top doctors in the country. But my baby was dying because I refused to see wisdom that did not look like mine. I had to be humbled by a piece of woven cloth that cost maybe $20. I learned that my love was useless until I let go of my control. He always ended his talk by showing a picture of Maya and Ethan Jr. being carried in the colorful rebozo. He kept one permanently draped over the chair in his office as a reminder of his biggest mistake and his greatest lesson. He learned that money can buy a crib, but it cannot buy a connection. The greatest lesson I ever learned, he would say, was taught to me by a nanny who saved my daughter. She taught me that the best way to lead and the best way to love is to understand that the deepest truth often comes from the simplest, oldest places, wrapped in traditions you might not know. He looked out at the crowds. He was no longer trying to control the world. He was trying to understand it. And in that understanding, he finally found peace. He walked away from the podium, a rich man who finally knew what being rich truly meant. He meant being rich in love, family, and respect for every person's wisdom. He walked toward Sonia, who was waiting for him, and together they went home to their children, completing the story of a man who found his soul when he learned to let go of control.